Good evening. Welcome to the regularly scheduled meeting of the Jefferson County Board of Education on Monday, March 13th. If you'd please join us for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. And I believe this evening we're starting with a couple of statewide recognitions. Is that correct, Dr. Gibson-Learn?
Yes, ma'am, absolutely. So this is actually probably one of the best parts of the job. Anytime I'm called on to speak or to do recognitions, I always talk about how proud I am to represent Jefferson County Schools, and that is always, always true. I do feel like I've been very blessed. But it's always a little more meaningful when they're people that you know and you care about and you've worked very closely with. So in which case this evening I am doubly blessed. So first and foremost, I would like to introduce someone who has actually had a bit of a long journey to get here. You know, sometimes we have folks who are successful, and all of these circumstances came together to help carry them to success, right? We all know about folks who get those home runs when they started off on third base. And sometimes you have people who had to work under some pretty adverse circumstances, and they managed to make it to home base anyway, against a lot of tall odds. So for those of you who've been with us for a while, you might remember that 2 years ago now, we recognized that while we had a lot of good, talented people, that we had a lot of work to do for our high school guidance program to meet all of the expectations that our parents and our teachers and our board had for them. And so we asked the State Department to come in and do a special circumstance review, and it was a tough year. There was an enormous amount of work. We ripped up a lot of things that had been done the same way for a long, long time and had to reinvent the wheel in a lot of cases. And while that was painful, it was also every single kid walking out the door last year with their schedule. It was also having half a dozen different parent meetings and information sessions and high scholarship notification rates. It was a lot of good things coming out of it. And one of the best things, quite frankly, that's come out of it is someone who poured their heart and soul into making that transformation successful was recognized by one of our own. It always means a lot when the people who do what you do recognize that you do it best. So I would like to call up here for a few words and for us to recognize Miss Jennifer Stuntz, the Washington High School Counselor, who has been named the West Virginia High School Counselor of the Year. And maybe she could say a few words about that.
Yeah, it was quite an honor to be first off nominated, but to be nominated twice, 2 years in a row, by the same individual. I really have put my heart and soul into this job. I love what I do. The process for application was very, very hard. It really took a lot of time for me to reflect on what I do for the kids. When I was answering the questions, I actually didn't feel like I could answer them because I haven't done anything spectacular. I've just done my job, and I've done it with my whole heart. And so I accepted this award on behalf of all my students, the parents, and the community, because without them, I could not do this job. So thank you.
So again, thank you so much, Ms. Stuntz, one of the hundreds and hundreds of people here who do an amazing job for kids and make sure that they're successful. So very happy that the West Virginia School Counselor Association recognized her as the 2023 High School Counselor of the Year.
And one little thing that she did leave out was another achievement she had this year was getting her national certification. And I believe she's the only nationally certified counselor here in Jefferson County. So she didn't just start on third base. I think she started in the locker room and made her way around to home run in a very short period of time. So
Yes.
that says a lot.
Yes, ma'am, certainly does. You are entirely correct. There are too many accolades for me for you to remember all of them, but that was quite an accomplishment. Really, really is, and a lot of benefit there to the students here at Washington High School. So, extraordinary staff person. Next up, we have yet another person near and dear to my heart. So, like a lot of folks, you start a new job. And you're always nervous about whether or not you're going to be successful and what's going to happen. And the very first staff person that I met when I walked in the door was Janet Harner. And she got up from behind the desk and immediately came around and gave me a hug. And absolutely. Came around and gave me a hug, and in that moment was just looked at me, and she said, "We're going to get along great." And she was right. We have every moment. So again, an executive secretary, like anything else, it's you win an award, and you win an award often because there's this ideal up here, and you're the person who matches it the best. Right? But then sometimes you have a person and that person sets the ideal. You didn't know what that ideal was until they made it. So in Janet's case, she actually created that organization. So when you talk about the West Virginia Executive Secretary of the Year, that organization wasn't a thing until Janet made it. And she's still the go-to person for the state. She's still the go-to person for all 55 counties here when somebody has a question. I'm not going to mention that she started Jefferson County Schools the same year that I graduated from high school. But has taught me a lot. I'm her 9th superintendent, and I'm pretty proud that she's done an amazing job setting the standard for me and for everybody else in this organization. So I'd like to recognize Ms. Janet Harner.
Unlike Jennifer, I didn't have an application to fill out. It was a total humbling experience and surprise that I was selected for this honor. And to make it even more special, it's a perpetual award that's named in my honor, so that makes it even more special. So I was the first recipient of the Janet Harner Executive Secretary of the Year. And next year it will still be the Janet Harner Secretary of the Year, 2024, and someone else. So I feel blessed. I feel like I've accomplished a lot. I've been given just great opportunities in Jefferson County School. I continued my education, got my bachelor's degree when I was 72, and still learning. And I think it's important to keep learning and growing always to do your job well. So I feel like I've done that, and I'm just tickled that I was able to be part of the school system and part of the school board workings, and especially superintendents. I worked for 9 superintendents, and so I'm not trying for 10. but I told Vondi when she first was hired that I said, I'm not training another one, you're going to be my last. So, and she is. So, but thanks to all my 55 county executive secretaries to superintendents, we've accomplished a lot, and I feel very blessed to be part of the group. Thank you.
And Mrs. Harder, you say 9 superintendents, but I'm not even going to ask you to do the math on how many board members, because we are the ones that definitely rely on you as much as the superintendents do, so we appreciate you. All right, next we have a presentation to the board from the representative of Giant Martins from our local Roundup program. Perfect timing.
I was about to come up and say, I'm afraid that we may need to delay this. Your timing is remarkable. Very impressive, sir. So please come on, kumbaya. So annually, Martin's has been a very generous local business in terms of providing funding to Jefferson County schools that allows us to provide school nutrition to students and to do some extra things that we might not be able to do otherwise in terms of creativity around that. So I would like to welcome Marquise up here to speak.
How you doing, everybody? Once again, thank you for having me. I think I did it last year, but I was on the screen. It was nice to be here in person. Being new to the community, being new to the area, a couple years ago I moved down from Philadelphia. So this is my second year being down in the West Virginia area, and I'm still learning things, still learning where things are. But one thing I can say is true, we're about the community. It's no different in Philadelphia than in West Virginia. We're about the community, we're about helping in different ways, and one of the ways that we can always try to help is by helping for the kids. So through the Giant Company, we have a program called Feed School Kids, and through that contributions we get from, it's called a roundup. So if a customer purchases an item and to even the bill, they can round up and contribute that money to this program. So through that and through our local customers and through the team, we were able to gather up over $10,000 worth of funds to help, contribute back into our local community. Just kind of have a dummy check, but we appreciate, all the support. Sorry.
$10,161.08.
Yep. Okay.
Make sure I got that number right, so that it all ends up in there and not on Snickers bars for me. Thank you so much.
No problem, no problem. We appreciate all the support, and if there's anything that we can do more, just let me know. We are willing to do whatever we can in the community, do volunteer efforts. We can do stuff with that. We can, support however you want us to do. It's just communication. Communication and planning, we can do a lot. But thank you.
Thank you so much.
Okay. And next up, I believe we have our instructional support update. Mr. Banks? I'll just be out cashing this check, don't mind me.
Good evening. I'm excited to present to you tonight a group of folks who've been doing some frequent ongoing work with math. Mr. Joel Silver, our middle school coordinator, is here to introduce our amazing math teachers and also tell you a little bit about what they've been up to. Mr. Silver?
Thank you, Board. Thank you, Dr. Gibson-Learn, for allowing us to present today. This time of year is always the time that we give our Math 1-8 entrance exam to our students, which is our 7th grade students will take the entrance exam to qualify for Math 1-8, which is the high school equivalency in 8th grade. And since I've been in this position, every time we go to give that test, the teachers are always saying, Joel, we need to relook at the way we do our honors pathway in middle school. Obviously, as you know, the last couple of years, we did not feel the timing was right, but with next year being our instructionals material update, we thought this was the perfect time to do that. And so for the last 4 or 5 months, I have been able to meet with some incredible math teachers, and we have taken a look at our honors program in middle school. Over the last 3 years, the numbers of students taking advanced courses in middle school has increased greatly. We have students taking Math 1, we have students taking Math 2, and unfortunately, when they're getting to high school, we're finding that they're not ready, that there's some gaps missing. And so our teachers took a look at all the standards in 6th grade, 7th grade, and 8th grade, and we have revamped our honors pathway. And so I'm going to turn it over to the teachers. They did a tremendous job. I couldn't be more proud of them. And so if the team can come on up, I'll have them introduce themselves, and then we'll present the update with our honors program. We are also, Miss York is here from Shepherdstown Middle. She represents our parent committee. We had an administrative committee, a parent committee, and then our teacher committee. So I'll just let everyone introduce themselves.
Hello, I'm Christy Fisher. I work at Wildwood Middle School.
Hi, I'm Shana Bush. I'm with Harpers Ferry Middle School.
Hi, I'm Loria Painter, and I'm with the Jefferson Virtual Academy.
Hi, I'm Judy York, and I represent, I have 3 children who've gone through the honors program in math and coach a local math club for middle schoolers.
Hi, I'm Meredith Hollis. I'm from Charlestown Middle School.
Hi, everyone. I'm Beth Kaltreiter. I am an 8th grade math teacher at Charlestown Middle. And I believe I am our spokesperson this evening.
Let's tell them why. So Ms. Kaltreiter, she is our one certified math teacher for Math 2. She's our only certified Math 2 teacher in middle school. And so she has taught Math 2 virtually. She's taught it in person. She's taught it to every school in our county. So she has been our guru of math. And she has been the most vocal that has told me the last 3 years that we needed to revamp this, so she gets to present tonight.
Careful what you ask for there, Ms. Kaltreiter.
That is true. I have been very vocal about this. I believe we have a slideshow this evening. I don't know if you have it on your screens or if you have it up on the big screen over there, but I'd like to give you an overview of our new honors math pathway. Thank you again for letting us present this evening. The new honors math pathway is a 3-year comprehensive accelerated program. Students that would be accepted into this, and we'll cover how they are accepted in just a moment, but if they are enrolled, they'd take 3 courses in middle school. They would take Math 6 honors, Math 7 honors, and Math 1 honors. For those of you who are incredibly familiar with our current classes, Math 1 honors, as it's named and as it's taught as to high school freshmen, it's not the exact same course in middle school. In middle school right now, students take Math 1-8, which is a combination of Math 1 standards and the remaining 8th grade standards. So there's a modification there. This pathway will cover 4 years of the West Virginia College and Career Readiness Standards during 3 years in middle school. For sake of explanation, I'm just going to call them standards from here on out. Students can earn 1 high school math credit while in middle school while covering all of the Math 1 standards. That's slightly different than what's being currently offered because for Math 1-8, the current class, most of the Math 1 standards are covered, but not all, because we do have to cover the rest of the 8th grade standards. Would you advance that, please? Thank you. We had a long list of the rationale behind this pathway, but I'd like to hit on a few items, please. This pathway was created because we really saw a need for an increased challenge for very motivated students. Students who really not only want to take their math learning to another level, but who are ready for the rigor that goes along with it. Unfortunately, we also found that there was a fewer mastery of standards, even though there was greater enrollment in the high school classes. For example, a student that's enrolled in 8th grade who is taking a sophomore high school level course, you would expect them to be above mastery for the GSA. That's the summative assessment at the end of the year, of course. And we were not finding that correlation. Both Jefferson and Washington high schools have reported that many middle school students are just not as prepared for the high school math classes as they would hope, and we saw skill gaps forming based on untaught skills. Now, when we were looking at all of these, there was a confluence of circumstances for all of these things. But all of these wonderful people behind me, we just want to work toward a solution because we want to elevate all of our students, not just the students for which this is mentioned. The current Math 1-8 students also do not receive honors credit. While that might seem like a small thing, that means every Jefferson County student who's enrolled in Math 1-8 in the middle school setting, it affects their GPA for high school because they don't have that weighted average when it's going back to be summarized at the end of their high school career. So this would take care of that as well. How do they get into this program? This new pathway, excuse me. All students would take an entrance exam in the spring, and the nice thing about that is it is a test that will be designed by my wonderful colleagues over here and myself, and to make sure that it covers the standards necessary to proceed to the next class. In other words, these are the students that already know what they're supposed to at their current level, so they are ready to go. We also, after much discussion, we wanted to make sure that the students would have more than one opportunity to take such an important test. For a student that had a bad day or had some other circumstance, there would be one retake of the entrance exam as well. In order to stay in this Math 6 honors, for example, students would have to maintain a C average or higher, and their grades would be evaluated both at the end of the first 9 weeks and at the end of the semester to make sure that they're still appropriately placed. They would also then, at the following spring, they would take the annual entrance exam for the next course. So it would not be the situation where students would be enrolled in Math 6 honors and then stay in the program. They would actually have to take the entrance exam for the next test. That would also include that any other student, a transfer student, or just another student that felt that they had met those standards, they would also have that opportunity. So it is very inclusory. For the implementation of the pathway, parent letters sent home and was detailing the entire pathway, and parents can opt in for testing. We know that not all of our 5th grade parents are going to want their students to take this test, and there is an opt-in form that goes along with the letter. Then the students will take the entrance exam this year, and we anticipate a 3-year rollout. For example, this year our current 5th grade students will take the test, take the entrance exam, and then those students who are interested, who earn an 80% or higher on 1 or 2 takings of the test would enroll in Math 6 honors. Thank you. Just a quick comparison of how the current standards and the way that they are implemented would be different from this new pathway. If you can direct your attention to the screen, please forgive all the numbers, but we're good at that. Currently, there are 29 math standards that are covered in 6th grade. The new Math 6 honors would cover 46. It would cover all the current 29 from the current Math 6 standards and 17 of the Math 7 standards. In Math 7 honors, it would be the rest of the Math 7 standards and all of the Math 8 standards, and then students as 8th graders would take Math 1 honors, which is only the Math 1 standards, and we would work with high school teachers who are currently teaching Math 1 honors so that those align. Are there any questions? Yes, ma'am.
Hi, I appreciate that you're focusing on some honors programs. I have a few questions about that. How many students end up graduating or going into the 9th grade honors program, or how many do you foresee with this new plan?
We, after a 3-year rollout, I believe that this would be a very small number of students.
Right.
Instead of having, as we discussed just a moment ago, there are many students now who are being enrolled in an advanced class. This would cut that number down quite a bit, and we'd anticipate maybe a class or 2 at most from each middle school.
And I'll add, if I can just add one thing. Because our math teachers do not want to see anyone left behind, what we were finding is students aren't quite ready for the rigor of that class, and the teachers don't want to keep moving at the pace they should. So then at the end of the year, we're not covering all the standards we should, and that's why there's the skill gaps that we're finding.
Yeah, I understand, and that was my assumption, and like I said, I appreciate that you're spending a lot of energy on the honor students, but what are you doing for the rest of the students? Because I know that it's just a small number who would, I mean, it sounds like it's going to be even a smaller number with this new program, but all of the math students have trouble transitioning from middle school to high school. So what are you doing for those students?
So with this, we have found that peer tutoring and peer teaching is one of the biggest pedagogical issues that we can find where students grasp if they can teach their peers. And so the reason that if the math honors classes are smaller, we are then putting some other students who have a great deal of knowledge about math back out with the rest of their peers, and we are thinking then that is going to bring everyone else up. Because in a class, when you can put together students of different levels, we do think everyone's standards will be raised then.
Yeah, I understand that philosophy. So then why not use peer tutors for the honors students and then use intensive instruction or skill gap, filling in the skill gaps for these other students? Because it's clear that that's the issue. There are skill gaps. So there's skill gaps for all students. Correct?
If I may, those sort of programs are currently in the schools.
Right, I
where
understand.
we have peer tutoring at the grade at the traditional grade level. So for Math 8 students, grade level Math 8 students, there is already a lot of peer tutoring going on, and there are a lot of these programs. We just want to make sure that students, if they are advancing to a high school level course, that they are in fact ready to do so. I don't see this as negatively impacting any other student because, of course, we want everyone to succeed. But I see it more as elevating everyone's game, because if a few honors students who are ready for that high school level and they are ready for that rigor and they have a pathway now that will challenge them, we have a new set of students in every class that are right where they need to be. And that actually helps everyone, not just from a peers tutoring standpoint, but also we can encourage everyone to do their absolute best. And that's what all of our teachers want.
Yeah, I understand. I'm asking about any programs to fill in the skill gaps for the rest of the students besides tutoring. I mean, for example, I spoke with Senator Grady. She's the chair for Education Department, and we spoke extensively about the idea of using programs like iReady to fill in the skill gaps. Maybe, start at 7th grade, 6th grade, and give the test. And the students that are, have large skill gaps, they can do these programs independently or over the summer. But, I taught high school math here, so I completely understand the problem with students coming from middle school. It's not just the honor students that aren't ready. All students in general aren't ready. That's one major concern. The other is we also spoke about the issues with Math 1 and the fact that that program, the Math 1, 2, 3 sequence, that's not the best preparation for the state exams that we're taking. So they're not in alignment with the SAT and PSAT. Is there, where is the progress towards going back to giving a solid foundation in the algebra and geometry track? Is that something that has been discussed? And I guess that's a question for Mr. Banks.
Let me answer the second question first. So one of our goals this year was to go back to the traditional sequence, the algebra sequence. In speaking to not just one, but two people from the State Department, they have a committee who review the standards regularly. And one of the things they're working on this year is reviewing them again. They strongly encouraged us to stick with the Math 1 sequence based on where they see the revision of the standards going. We're blessed to have Barbara Zing, one of our teachers on that committee, who keeps us posted regularly. So we anticipate that once those standards are revised, that it will line up with the SAT in a better way. You know this has been a challenge for a while because the whole idea behind the Math 1 sequence was to line with the former exam, but then at that point students were taking a summative assessment in grades 9, 10, and 11. So now they believe that with the new revision, it's best for us to stick with our Math 1 sequence.
Well, I understand that. Hopefully that's the case, that it'll be improved, but I know our students have been at a disservice for the last, several years since we've had this program, especially since the transition to the SAT. I think those are all my questions.
Okay.
So I do have a
Thank
couple
you.
of questions. So my question, my first question would be, if a student came into Jefferson County schools during their 6th grade year and were not put into honors, but then the 7th grade year, they are in the honors, right? So you would have to have math 6th, 7th, and 8th honors for this accelerated program. So what would happen to a student in that case?
So any new student that comes in, before we enroll them in a math class, we're going to give the entrance exam to see where their placement should be. And we're not just giving it to new enrollees, so every student after every year has a chance to get back into the honors pathway. So we're actually thinking this will be more inclusive than exclusive. So they don't necessarily have to have the other honors classes. It will just better prepare them for Math 1. But there are some students who may not have Math 6 honors and still be ready for Math 7 honors.
Okay, because he's in Math 7 honors, and so hopefully, now, if someone's already in Math 7th honors, did you say that they'll have to test into 8th honors? So when do they test in? Because we haven't heard anything about that.
Most of the tests would always occur in the spring for the following year. But this is a 3-year rollout, so this year would only impact the 5th grade. Next year it would be for the next grade up, and then within the next 3 years, hopefully we'll have everything up and running.
Okay, so if they're in if they're in 7th honors now, then when they go to the 8th grade, they'll just go into the 8th grade honors.
No,
Is
they
that
would
what
take
you're
Math
saying?
1-8 if they take, because we're giving our entrance exams here in a week for that class as well. And students who are currently enrolled in above 5th grade would proceed as we are now.
Okay, but he's in 7th honors now, so he wouldn't stay in the 8th honors? He would have to come out of honors class?
Unfortunately, right now, Jefferson County doesn't have a Math 8 honors.
So I think,
okay.
so Math 7 honors, he will take the Math 1-8 entrance exam, just like we've done for the past few years. But the new pathway starting in 5th grade.
Okay.
So Math 7 honors, he will take the Math 1-8 entrance exam in a week.
And you said that's coming up when?
1 week.
Oh, I haven't heard a word about it.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
It's being given by their 7th grade teachers. So I bet you'll get something home tomorrow.
You will.
I just have one more question before we move on. I just, for Mr. Banks, I suppose, is it possible to give something like, enrichment for the students that have the skill gaps, for the rest of the students? Not just the honor students, the other students who have skill gaps. Is it possible to, I understand like iReady, it's probably $8 or $9 per student, but the rewards, it seems to be worth it.
Absolutely. So in the middle school, we use IXL, which is very similar to iReady. We found that we've put out that every student needs to do 2 skills a week. We have to update our diagnostic 10 minutes a week. Some schools use it during their MTSS. Other teachers are using it during their math class. Ms. Shanna Bush is actually our curriculum specialist in math. Do you want to come for a couple minutes and just tell about IXL? She is our expert. That is the program we're using for the skills gaps in the middle school.
Let's use that term loosely, expert. But yes, we piloted IXL last year, and I was a huge proponent because I saw the huge benefit to our students who had those learning gaps, whether it was from their elementary school career, because of COVID, et cetera. So we've been regularly and consistently using it in our middle schools across all of our math teachers and all of our math classrooms this year. Like Mr. Silver said, our expectation is that students will reach proficiency, which is a SMART score of 80, and at least 2 skills per week. That could be an assignment that their teacher gives them based on grade level, or it could be based on the student's recommended skills. And those recommended skills are individualized for that particular student based on IXL's diagnostic, which is a test that students take in IXL, and it pinpoints their grade level. And then it recommends skills that they need to further their own personal math understanding.
So this is elementary and middle school it's used?
Middle school.
Just middle. So do you have anything for elementary and high school?
So we can't particularly speak on that.
Huh?
I can't speak on high school or elementary. I don't know if Mr. Banks wants to add anything to that. I can only speak on the middle school.
Okay. So is there a way to offer a program for students over the summer who maybe at the end of the year are clearly, they have large skill gaps? Maybe they could do the program over the summer as reinforcement. Is that without going to summer school since it's online?
Absolutely. So we renew that license for summer. So yes, IXL is up and running all summer long for students who want to utilize it. Yes, ma'am.
So they just have to raise their hand and say they want to do. How do families find out about it for their children?
Through the schools, we have sent out information about IXL. As far as utilization, every student has an account in Canvas. It's linked directly, and they can work on that as often as they want to.
So they can continue over the summer on their own. And
Yes.
is there anybody? They don't need anybody to monitor it.
No.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
And I believe I understand, but just for clarity, current 6th and 7th graders will continue to take 6th grade honors, 7th grade honors, and Math 1-8, correct? The 5th
That's correct.
graders will go into the new program and moving forward.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And I do appreciate the fact that you're changing it so the 6th and 7th grade, it's a year and a half of math instead of the 8th grade being 2 years of math, because that's a lot of math.
It is. And we found it actually aligns more with other counties in West Virginia. This is the pathway that it represents that better than what we were doing. So thank you.
I just would quickly say, number one, thank you guys for putting all the time and effort into it. Between Kathy and I and 8 children who have who know exactly what that non-honors credit means for that Math 1-8 and all the different ways that we've tried to, hey, ring that bell. So I'm so thankful that you guys have looked at that and are clearing that up. And I love the fact that you can take that exam as a 6th grader, as a 7th grader, or as an 8th grader, that it's not going to exclude you from that because we do know kids learn at different rates, and I think that's great. Children can get tutoring, and they can get up to skills and up to par, even outside of school, if they want to catch up with that, which happens, I know, a lot. For a lot of kids are just not ready. So there's just a lot of different pieces of this I really like. So I appreciate all the work that you guys have done to middle school math. So thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone.
All right, next up, we have the approval of the minutes. Is there a motion to approve the minutes of the regular board meeting held February 27th, 2023?
So moved.
Thank you, Ms. Ogden. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Osborne. Any discussion? All in favor of approving the minutes from February 27, 2023, say aye.
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 Opposed? Thank you. Citizens' comments this evening. I believe we have one online. Ms. Bobby Block. Good evening, Ms. Block, whenever you're ready.
Thank you. I am grateful to have the strength and breath to be able to testify before you tonight. We need to act responsibly and stop the toxic catastrophe waiting to happen. Praying you find the courage to move forward to help protect the children. Also wanted to inform you that the worldwide network of Society of Friends, Quakers around the world have been moved to be praying for our protection and the safety of those of us living in Jefferson County, especially the children. However, it takes more than prayer. It takes action and courage. The BoE can urge the West Virginia Department of Environmental Protection, DEP, to require Rockwell to improve its application for modification of the air permit to contract R140037. You can submit your comments by contacting the DEP directly or Jefferson County Foundation, JCF. More information regarding submission of comments will be included in the written testimony. The JCF lists 7 critical points, highlighting a relevant concern being brought to the BoE's attention is the need for a responsible and accountable monitoring. The JCF states that the application lacks adequate monitoring. The other action the BoE can take is the implementation of the health and human risk assessment. What will it take to address the HHRA? It is a rich and vital tool that the BoE can utilize, and the JCF states there is more need for monitoring. There are 2 actions that can be taken by the BoE. 1, submit testimony to the DEP, and 2, resurrect the HHRA. Realizing that you are swamped, willing to humbly volunteer and help the BoE move forward on these 2 points. Our children deserve environmental justice. Please have the courage to ensure that their safety is protected. At this point, there is no excuse for denying that you have been negligent in fulfilling your due diligence. You have the opportunity to take positive action. You could prove monumental, reflecting David taking on Goliath. David was courageous and won.
Thank you, Ms. Block. All right, next we have the consent agenda. Dr. Gibson-Lauren, do you know if there are any changes to the consent agenda? Thank you. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Osborne. Is there a second? Thank you, Ms. Bratton. Any discussion? All in favor of approving the consent agenda, say aye.
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 Opposed? Thank you. Next, we have unfinished business. And the first item is superintendent search. I just wanted to make sure that everybody was aware that we had our first meeting tomorrow with the search firm, and that they have given us an assignment for each of us to come up with 3 criteria we would like to see in the next superintendent, and then also start thinking about stakeholder groups, because all of that will be determined tomorrow.
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
I read some of the documents, and one of them is the requirements for superintendent, and it says PhD required. And we've not discussed that, so I'm not sure where that's coming from.
We have not discussed that, and I think that's just in their forms that they sent. The
What-
criteria, we'll determine the criteria tomorrow that they put in their job description and ad.
Then why does it say preferred Jefferson County resident, as that's not going to be in their form?
Tomorrow is when we will determine all of the criteria and
Okay.
finalize that form.
So at that point, the job description or the posting, will it be on the Jefferson County Schools website? Will the position be posted?
Once we get the criteria, they will, I believe it takes them several days to go through their internal system, and then it will be posted. It'll be posted with the West Virginia State site as well.
Okay, and then my other question, is the meeting tomorrow open to the public?
It is open to the public.
Okay, thank you.
And the meeting tomorrow is at the board office?
It's at the board office at 5:30.
Okay, so just real quick, you just said it, but I missed the second thing you said. You said the 3, our homework is to come with 3 criteria that we're thinking for superintendent. What was the other one, please?
The other thing we need to discuss are stakeholder groups for the search firm to meet with. All right. Any other comments or discussion on A?
Yeah, I mean, it seems that we could have an advisory committee, formed. This is a perfect use of an advisory committee. That could be one of the stakeholder groups. Do you agree, or?
I don't think it's our standard advisory committee. I think they're going to be the ones running the meetings with the different stakeholder groups.
Yeah, I just, so the stakeholder groups, meaning parents, staff, those stakeholder groups? Is
Yes,
that what
ma'am.
you're referring to?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Next, we have advisory committees, and you asked this to be on the agenda. I'm not sure what you wanted.
Okay, I have a few questions about these advisory committees. A lot of people have been emailing. They're concerned that there's a third person that's going to be the mediator who is assigned from the board office, and they're not comfortable because they were told that they're supposed to tell all their problems, all their concerns. So if the first meeting, I mean, it's one thing to hire a third party to act as a mediator of these groups. If it's just for the organization of the group, it's a completely another issue to tell them that they're supposed to, that first day, tell us all your problems, and then this all gets reported back to whoever has recruited this third person.
Okay, so I'm not sure where that perception is arising from, but the only thing that we have done is we have a retired administrator who agreed to do the initial organizing meeting for all of the advisory committees. We sent out to everyone on those advisory committees the sort of the organizational meeting outline that we showed, I came up here and showed to the board and said, this is our idea for how they would sort of organize themselves. Someone that first meeting has to actually talk them through the process. Okay, here's what we're doing. And then the idea, which the board had discussed previously, is that at that meeting, the individuals who are on that advisory committee elect someone to be their spokesperson. Now, how they proceed from there is up to that advisory committee. So I'm not sure what you're talking about.
Okay,
a mediator
I think
or...
they were given a list of things that they, suggestions of what to do in that meeting, but I don't know, someone said that they were expected to say all their problems that first meeting. So they're not going to be asked to do that, to relay all the issues that they have or concerns. This is just an organizational meeting.
Well, I do, again, we sent out the exact same meeting organization outline that we posted up and gave to the board for review. And it simply says on there, hey, advisory committee, yes ma'am, that's exactly it. You have to organize yourself somehow. And, you know, it is hopeful if you have 60 people and they all are talking about their individual issues, it is helpful if they organize that into some type of, okay, all of these folks, you're really interested in talking about recruitment. All of you folks, you're really interested in talking about the certification process. This group, you're interested in talking about. So in terms of cataloging every concern that they have, no, I don't think that that's the purpose of the meeting. But
This, and then there were several or other concerns about administrators who've signed up to be on these committees. And, you know, from my perspective, administrators should not be on these committees. Board members should not be, administrators should not be. These are, because the citizens and, you know, staff who are on these committees don't feel comfortable saying maybe how they feel when maybe the person that runs that department is on that committee. So it defeats the purpose. The idea of the advisory committees is to be unfiltered, to where they meet as a group and they decide these are the issues and bring them to the board. But if they don't feel safe and comfortable to do that, it defeats the purpose. So I believe we need to create a policy about, you know, who definitely should not be on these committees. And I believe that administrators should not be on the committees or board members.
Board members should not be on the committees or at the meetings either. I mean,
Right, well, I agree.
So Dr. Gibson, it's just like, for example, when you asked me not to be a part of the parent meeting because I was a board member and people might not feel, you know, comfortable with speaking because I was there. So it's the same case scenario. So I understand what Dr. Joy is saying.
No doubt.
My only thing with the administrators would be, and Mark, I think maybe you could speak to this probably the best as a previous administrator, but the only piece I would think of is if I, as an administrator, am dealing with discipline in my building, or I'm dealing with hiring staff members, or I'm dealing with, you know, a myriad of other things that we have these committees for, and I would like to go as a administrator and share my opinion on, hey, I need help with this because I think this needs to be a part of this policy, or I need help with this because this needs to be a part of this policy. I don't know that I think that's a fair assessment to not allow them as a member of
They can go to their supervisor. I mean, that's the point of, you know, Mr. Banks and superintendent. Administrators can go to their supervisor, but I think that...
I am honestly never going to change your opinion if you feel strongly about something, and I'm definitely not going to try to do that. I'm just saying my own perspective would be, I think it's fair to leave it open to everyone but board members. That's my personal opinion. I'm not looking to be right or wrong. I'm just explaining why I feel like that's my personal opinion.
We did
Well,
not set
I
up
have
any.
I've gotten many complaints saying, you know, there's no point in me going to the human resources meeting if, you know, the director of human resources sitting in the meeting. They don't feel comfortable. And I know that the director of human resources can go to her supervisor. And then if they don't feel comfortable, they can come to the board. But a teacher or a citizen doesn't have the same access to the board as other employees in the administrative department because they're part of the administrative team.
So, a couple of things. Per the board's original directive, we did not set any limitations on who could sign up for those. And we do have a number of employees who've signed up for those, a lot of them because they're also parents here at Jefferson County Schools. So certainly, and you noted this, you're the board. If you want to create another policy and post it up and get public feedback, you're welcome to do that as you please. We did convey, so Miss Joan Willard is the a retired administrator who's very graciously agreed to do all these so that we would have some consistency. And one of the things that I conveyed to her is that I felt that certainly the groups could choose whoever they wanted to be their spokesperson to the board, but that my advisement would be to encourage them that it not be one of our employees, because I don't want to put one of them in that position. And there is a mechanism in that organizational document that says if you as an advisory group need some information from us as a school system, then you can put in an inquiry to us at any time through our staff. So again, I do believe that citizens have access to the board. You certainly tell me. I certainly haven't had any issue with board members not coming to me when they've heard something from a parent. And if any of our staff, either during work hours or after work hours, conduct themselves in a way that is intimidating or off-putting, heck yes, I want to know that. I want us to address that. So once again, they're your advisory committee.
The policy says that the board decides who's going to be on the committees, so that's already there. So we
Yes,
don't
ma'am,
have
it
to
is.
change that. I mean, we've already had directors of programs that are put themselves on the committee giving directions to people who are potentially on the committee. So before the committees have even started, this has happened. I think that these people, if they want to volunteer, they can volunteer to be a point of contact. If these committees have questions about policies and rules, they can go to these directors. They could go to Amy Loring or the director of special ed if they have special ed questions. But for those people to be part of these advisory committees, they already are part of the team, the administrative team, which is very different from a teacher. So I personally feel that we should not allow those types of administrators to be a part of these advisory meetings. They shouldn't attend them. They shouldn't have access to the people that are on the committees. This should be a safe place for people to meet and discuss, to have, to give productive information to the board, suggestions and their concerns.
I agree with that.
I personally have no issue with the administrator serving on the committees because of the fact that these committees are not set up as a witch hunt in departments. These committees are set up to identify an issue and how do we solve that issue.
But
And
no one will want to speak.
who better to know how to solve an issue than the person that's in the department itself?
That's why
I
they
mean,
go.
we did it, excuse me, ma'am. We did that with the counseling audit. That's a perfect example where, you know, they came and the guidance department was the one that helped identify the issues and helped, you know, solve the issues. So I see no issue with the person, the administrator in that department being a part of that committee.
If you're a special ed teacher and you have concerns or you would like to see things go a certain way and you have the director of special ed in the meeting, it makes it difficult. It creates an extra layer of stress to have this person. It's not much different from having a board member sitting there in your meeting observing. I just don't, there's no reason for the director of special ed or human resources or, you know, any of these other levels, even for the grading. We wouldn't want Mr. Banks to be in that committee because he's the one that's going to hear it. He's going to have, well, we can't do that, you know, because of X, Y, and Z. But it's kind of counterproductive. We're not going to be getting the full picture if somebody that people, you know, their supervisor is in the meeting.
Ms. Skinner,
Yes, ma'am.
I have had, just to myself, two employees who have reached out to say that it would be a very uncomfortable situation to have, I'm sorry, it would be a very uncomfortable situation to have like the department heads and the, on the committees and as well as board members. So I'm just passing on what I've received. Thank you.
Well, I'd like to make a motion that we make it clear that board members and, as a minimum, directors, program directors, you know, anybody working at the board office, basically. I mean, it's one thing, I mean, I don't even know that a principal, an administrator of any kind should not be a part of those meetings.
I would like to second
Well,
that
we
motion.
We don't have action on the agenda. It's just listed here for discussion.
So we do have, and this may help, all of those meetings are scheduled, if you'll remember, your policy says that, yes, to your point, the board has to appoint who's on those committees. And it also says that you can't have more than 25 folks on one. And so if you'll remember, what we suggested was, let's set up the meetings. They can divide themselves into at least groups of 25 for you guys to approve them. And then we would bring back to you, like, human resources, here's 25 people for this, 25 people for this. So when they've all had their original meetings, what we can do is I can have Ms. Willard bring back the lists for all the committees for you as a board to approve. And at that time, if there's anybody that you want to put on or take off, or because at that time, it will be, you'll need to take action to appoint them. So you could do it that way if you, I mean, you're the board, do it any way that you want. I'm just making a suggestion.
But
That
this
makes
isn't the
sense.
meeting that we were, this was not the meeting we're supposed to appoint them. it's supposed to happen once we get the list.
Yes, ma'am.
It didn't,
That
we
makes
weren't, it
sense,
didn't
though.
specify, but.
No, it didn't specify that, she's right. But if that makes sense to you, then
That
we
makes
can do
sense.
that. Is that
That
what
makes-
you'd like me to have Ms. Willard do?
That makes sense to me.
And just to clarify, it has to say action taken in order to make a motion. Is that the policy? Is that the policy? Ms. Skinner?
Well, we can't take action on it because we don't have the list yet.
No,
I
I'm
believe
just
that's what
asking you,
Ms.
you said
Willard is
that we
coming with.
can't, I made a motion and you said we can't vote because it's, it doesn't say that, you know, that it would be action taken.
You had specifically asked to have this put on the agenda for discussion, so I thought that's what it was here for.
We didn't specify, I just asked to have it on the agenda. It didn't say, it was, my point is that if, does it have to say action will be taken one way or the other in order to vote on it? It's just a question. I had never heard that before.
Well, I guess I misspoke, and that it really, we don't have action tonight because we don't have the list of the committees.
So we're choosing not to take action tonight because we don't have the committees, which is fine. That's a solution. But it's not because of any policy that, you know, forbids us from voting. So do I need to remove my motion? Or,
Yes, please.
okay, then I'll do that. I'll remove my motion.
And I had seconded it, so I will remove it.
And how soon would we be getting that list?
That's a good question. I'll need to look at my calendar, but they will all be done by the time, like not this Wednesday, but next Wednesday, I believe. Yeah, okay. Okay. Somebody who's actually paying attention to the emails. Oh my God, that's great. So I'm pretty sure that they will all have had at least their inaugural meeting by the Wednesday before, so we can have those lists typed up and hopefully be able to post them on Wednesday with the agenda.
One more thing. I believe that at some point we would have to adjust this policy then, because if people come along and want to be part of the committee, would we have to approve them the way we do the consent agenda? Should that be an item on the consent agenda?
If you're going to keep adding people, I would imagine. I mean, I think that policy was written, and maybe you're envisioning it in a different way, and you guys need to talk about that. But it looked like, from what I saw, that they were using advisory committees more as like, we're looking at doing this one specific thing. Like, we're looking at sort of like the grading policy. We want to look at this one narrow thing. We want to know what you guys think about doing it. You put this committee together. They do that one thing, and then they disband. And it seems like what you're envisioning is something a little broader, like, you know, like an ongoing advisory committee. And if that's the case, you're right. Unless you change the policy, it says that you guys appoint who's on it. So if you're going to keep adding people, you're going to have some sort of rolling appointment process.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, I don't know that... we'd have to work through the logistics of that if that's what you guys want.
Yeah, maybe think about the term for one school year or something to that effect.
Yeah, that would probably make a lot of sense, like do a 1-year term for folks at a time, because I do think it would be hard to, if you got this committee together and you guys spend all this time talking about things and working through things, and then somebody comes in like 4 months into it and says, hey, why don't we do this? And everybody goes, oh, we talked about that 3 months ago. We can't do that. So there probably is some benefit to having some limits, but you can set up what those are.
I think the policy also has a defined term.
I need, and I don't have it in front of me, I can look it up on my laptop, but I can't remember if you define the term or if it says a year, because I know I sent that out. What does it say on there? You
I think it
gonna
just
ask me
says
to jump up and run up
a
there?
defined term. I don't think it specifies what the term is.
I'm not Hans, I can't do that jumping thing, I'm getting old. No, this isn't the
That's not
policy,
it.
this
That's
is
not what you're
just
looking for.
that's the organizational thing that I
okay.
sent you guys. But I do think, and I'm not gonna jump down there either.
Okay.
Well, at some point, we need to come up with some policies that fit this current board, because to keep just denying, supervisor, department chair, or whatever their role is, director, to keep just, I think to clarify that we are not, this is not for directors. Maybe that would simplify it so we can eliminate a director to keep asking, can they be part of it? That we're doing it this way because Ms. Skinner didn't want to have a vote today, so to avoid this. But at some point, I think we
Ms. Skinner
should
clarified, if you'd
make
like
it
to make a
clear.
motion
I'm
and you
trying
want
to
to put it on the
talk right
floor,
now.
if you want to make a motion and put it on the floor, Dr. Joy, you go right ahead
I
and we
did,
can vote on it.
and
Okay, if that's what we want to do we want to further that motion? If that's what you
I want to
want,
finish what I was saying.
trying to help you understand that if you want that, you can have that. As a board member, go ahead, put it on the floor. But don't blame Ms. Skinner that you didn't get something because we didn't vote on it.
No,
If you'd like it, vote on it, put it on the floor.
Okay, first of all, I'm not blaming Ms. Skinner. I am just saying that we are doing an alternative approach today because Ms. Skinner had suggested it, and then Dr. Gibson found a solution. So we're doing it temporarily but at some point we need to have a clear policy so that we don't keep recreating every time somebody says they want to be on the committee. We should just have some clear policies because these policies need to be updated. We don't know, it may say there is a clear term. I don't remember reading that. If not, we need to have that. Maybe new members can join, halfway through the year, January. It's a new term, it's whole new issues. These are just things that we need to think about. But I think adding that, the board maybe approved the list, but that certain people are not invited to join, meaning the directors, administrators and directors. And I think we need time to think about it.
I just want to throw the dates out there. So the Human Resources Committee will meet tomorrow from 4 to 6. The Discipline Committee will meet Wednesday, 4 to 6. Let's see. The semester exam is Monday, March 20th, 6 to 8. Nutrition is Tuesday, March 21st, 4 to 6. Special education is Wednesday, 6 to 8, March 22nd.
Can we agree to maybe come up with some policies at some point? Maybe put this on the board, on the agenda. Maybe after these committees meet, and we'll get a clearer idea of some of the needs. But eventually, it would make sense to create a clear policy. That's all I'm saying.
So what I can do is when I bring back the lists after everyone is met, I can, you guys all have a copy, and I'll send you an editable copy of the current policy, and then you guys can have plenty of time to look at it and think about, and then when you hear
sort of how the meetings went from Miss Willard and the numbers of people and who's on them, then you can see how that might influence how you wanted to change the policy. That way you'll have, at least to your point, Dr. Joy, that first set of meetings under your belt, and you'll have a better idea. And then you can look at the policy and go from there. You guys always have the power to change them.
Excuse me. Will Ms. Willard continue with the committees once they get started? Or
No,
she's
ma'am,
just
she
there
is
for that
only
one
doing
time?
the initial one so that each committee is led by the citizens on that committee. So my understanding is that they will sort of appoint some citizen, to be sort of the spokesperson of the chair. They'll ask someone to be sort of the backup. You know, heaven forbid you get somebody who's all excited and on fire for it and something happens and you don't have anybody. And we had some technology things to work through with Zoom. All of those meetings are over in the staff dev room at the bus garage. But we have to have someone who has the credentials to be able to log on and to do those and log off. So we think we've worked through most of that. But again, it's an experiment. We'll see.
And I did find it in 6.3.2 term. Upon approval of the majority of the members of the Jefferson County Board of Education, the appointed Citizens Advisory Committee member will serve for a term as designated by the board.
So it's your decision how long you want it. You can make it 3 years if you want to.
So we need to meet and discuss.
Mhm.
You just brought up a good concern, this Zoom, somebody who will have access. So would this be a citizen that's in the group?
For us, it would likely be someone who is an employee, doesn't need to be an administrator or anything, but an employee who knows how to run. We'd have to train them. Dr. Rowan and I and Ms. Willard sort of talked through how we would handle that. But all of the committees should have at least one staff person from the list that I've seen. If there's a committee that doesn't have any staff people on it, then we can work through training whatever citizen we need to run it.
Are they only Zoom, or do they have the option to meet in person?
Oh, all of them are in person. All of them are in person, but we had at least one person out, and usually several people. When we did the survey out, we asked what day, what time, and then in-person Zoom, and we had enough people on all of those that were doing both at the same time. So it's going to be in person and then Zooming it on the screen for that meeting. And again, we'll see how many people do. I mean, Joan will see how many people are going to do that.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
All right. Next up, we have new business, request approval to bid a pavement contract for Jefferson High School's back athletic field parking lot.
So I'm sure much to Mr. Osborne's excitement, Jay High from the previous bond funding, one of their projects is to pave that upper rear parking lot near where the baseball field is, that currently is like a mudslide that comes back down into that and floods that rear parking lot at J High. So the request is simply to go out for an RFP to get bids on a pavement to be able to alleviate that flooding issue back there.
All right, is there a motion to request approval to bid a pavement contract for Jefferson High School's back athletic field parking lot? Thank you, Mr. Osborne.
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Bratton. Any questions or discussions?
I just have a question for clarity on that back parking lot. Is that the parking lot that goes in between, or from the baseball past the softball and then down towards the Little League and floods that? Or is that the one that is between the baseball and the football field?
Baseball and the football. Mhm.
Okay, so it's only
Floods down.
it's only the small area that's not paved?
I
Because there's a
think-
paved area and then it stops and goes to
And it goes all to
dirt and gravel.
And and I don't want to misspeak, I'm sorry, but Ms. White is
taken ill suddenly. So I believe that they'll look at, because I think part of it is they're trying to study the runoff from up there, that if they pave one part of it, how far can they pave before it creates a flooding issue somewhere else? So I don't want to commit to, they're going to pave all of this, and the pavers and the engineer comes back and says, no, if you pave that, you're going to make the problem worse down here.
Okay.
But what they're trying to do, even more so than pave, is alleviate the flooding issues that they have there because of how elevated the fields are up there. And it's all just, if you've ever been out there when it's been raining and it floods that whole rear parking lot. So I think how much and how they pave it will be more of a condition of how can we do this in a way that alleviates the flooding issue.
So will there also be some sort of drain that's put in for that?
Yeah, I think that's the question. I think it's more that they want to get a paver, and I think that when I was texting back and forth with Brandon, a civil engineer to look at how to alleviate the flooding and get some traction and some pavement up there so that it's not a muddy mess, but you can't just walk in there and throw down all this pavement and then all of a sudden it makes it worse because it just runs off of it heavier and faster. So I would imagine, I don't know that they'll put like a big drainage system in it, but part of the issue with this is engineering it so that it stops the flooding. That's one of the primary reasons. But the RFP is just putting out a bid, and then they'll come back to you with their proposed solutions and costs for you to approve. So you're not approving anything other than going out and asking someone to give us their best idea on how to fix it.
There's also those permeable pavers too that they use in parking lots.
Yeah. I mean, there's drainage issues with how that space is set up.
All right, all in favor of requesting a bid for the pavement contract, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, Jefferson County School after-school childcare. Mr. Banks?
Hello again. It's time to put out an RFP for after-school childcare. Our current vendor is Alphabest. If you looked at the details of the RFP, it's a standard format that we use for everything else. It's for a period of 4 years, and the locations that we are in need of were also indicated on the RFP. So we're asking for your approval tonight to put out a request for proposals for after-school childcare.
So moved.
Thank you, Ms. Ogden. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Bratton. Any discussion? Just out of curiosity, Mr. Banks, have we ever had anybody but Alphabest? I know they've been around for,
Yes, we have. It's
Okay.
been not this past time, but before that, we had several people bid on it.
all right. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, board member comments. Mrs. Bratton, do you have anything?
Sure. Just want to say, let's go Cougars. They're at state. Very proud of them. Our boys basketball team. And also, I want to congratulate Hazel Hitt. I know Dr. Joy had congratulated her before, but I spoke to her parents and I told them that I would congratulate her. She was the first place winner in her division, Animal Science, at West Virginia State Science Fair. So kudos to her and the rest of our Jefferson County students and Shepherdstown Middle School students who attended that. And as far as the Parks and Rec, I believe the meeting is this Friday, so I'll have something to talk about on that next week. I mean, our next meeting, I'm sorry. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Osborne?
Good luck to Cougar basketball team. I hope they go a long way.
I just want to recognize this is Women's History Month, so remember all the wonderful women who have contributed to our country and the world. Wanted to thank Shepherdstown resident Melissa Reiner. She donated these beautiful 50th anniversary glasses, 8 special 50th anniversary glasses to Jefferson High School because they're celebrating the 50th class graduation class, and I'm hoping that somebody will get these to Ed Kahn. He's the teacher that's leading the anniversary committee at Jefferson High School. Want to remind everyone that the Promise Scholarship application and FAFSA are due by May 1st. Let's see, I wanted to thank the Jefferson County Schools Maintenance Department. They delivered water to all the schools impacted during the boil water warning. Congratulate Maya Powell Utley on her commitment to further her academic and track career at Wingate. Something Miss Taylor Bratton didn't mention about Hazel Hitt. Yes, she won first place in her age group, but she's also one of 6 that is moving on to the National Science Fair. Wanted to congratulate Spencer Powell on his commitment to further his academic and football career at Shepherd University. Let's see. And the Paul M. Saab Memorial Kiwanis Scholarship has no submissions. And it's that scholarship deadline is May 31st. So you have a good chance of getting it because you have no competition so far. I wanted to recognize former retired librarian from Harpers Ferry Middle School, Adele Knott. She was here at the last board meeting. She has given 30 years of service to the Kiwanis Club, so she was recognized in DC this past week for her service. And wanted to let everybody know that the Kiwanis fundraiser is May 5th. This is their 20th anniversary. They have an auction. Last year, they raised over $5,000 for our schools. The money goes to Jefferson High, Key Club, Wildwood Middle, Shepherdstown Middle is considering becoming a member, and T.A. Lowry. And you are welcome to donate. The Yates family donated this plaque, "Happiness is Homemade." And the donations range from gift certificates to hotel stays, restaurants, there's a ghost tour. Anyway, so if you have something to donate, you can contact the Kiwanis Club. I think that's everything.
Thank you. Just one more final congratulations to Mrs. Harner for winning the Janet Harner Award. And then one final congratulations to Mrs. Stuntz for winning the West Virginia School Counselor. And also a thank you to Mr. Banks for being in Morgantown where she received that award. That was a nice ceremony and it was nice to see you there. Dr. Gibson, Lauren, do you have any superintendent comments? And I don't believe we have an executive session, do we? All right then, 7:28, meeting adjourned. Thank you.